family or by the attorney. And that's also similar to what we've seen in the past. They look at the video and they have said that they've only given the backstory as to why he was pulled over, and they've said that the officers fired, in their words, defensively. So we're not seeing them change their story in any way at this point.
Maggie Vespa, thank you so much. All right. What was it? 5:20. All right. Hello, everybody. Whoa, dang. YouTube is already in here. Let's see. Fire everything else up. Dun, dun, dun. We'll get Twitch going. We'll get the Talk going. I don't want to post anything. Hold on real fast. Yo, how's it going? And we're going to be getting a live report from the Middle East in just a minute. But first, let's go to NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez in Washington right now. Gabe, let's start with this temporary ceasefire. What are the conditions and just how fragile is it right now?
I already told her to take it out.
Well, certainly, Gotti, there's a lot of questions about those conditions and confusion about what the U.S., Israel...
I'm sorry. Maybe she misunderstood, but definitely let's take it out.
And let's go now to Tel Aviv, where NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Gosk is standing by. Stephanie, good to see you. It seems like there was a lot of fighting today for a ceasefire, all this back and forth about whether Israel and Lebanon...
Here, trying to get this all situated. There's a lot going on today. Ceasefire holding, kind of, but not in Lebanon. Big attacks. Israel, Lebanon.
Now let's bring in NBC's Brian Chung for more on the market's reaction to the ceasefire news. So Brian, how did things look today on Wall Street?
Whoa, wait a minute, ceasefire. And apparently
Gotti, it was pretty simple. It was a great day for Wall Street. We saw the Dow Jones have
in the United States. It's confusing. We're going to be breaking it down in just a bit. Let's see. Came literally at the end. Actually, Superville, you came super early. Our show starts in 10 minutes. 10 minutes and like 40 seconds. So we're going to be going through all the day's news today, starting with Iran. We're going to be hitting, did you guys see the Anthropic stuff, Mythos, and this, I don't know, this public announcement that they have this frontier model, which is the latest and greatest in AI models. They've got this AI model called Mythos. And this thing, they were doing a bunch of red teaming, which is like pretend hacking. And this thing was a beast, like Age of Ultron, you know. I don't know if you guys are big comic book people, but Age of Ultron, Tony Stark, he's like, peacekeeping. Let's make a super intelligent AI that will be able to protect us from everything. And then tries to take over and sees humans as a threat and all that stuff. Well, not that bad, but definitely this model was created, it wasn't even created specifically for hacking, and yet one of the things that they found is that it is very effective. So effective at hacking and identifying vulnerabilities that they're not releasing it to the public. They're like, no, public, you can't have it. But you know who can have it? Like 40 or 50 of the biggest tech companies in the world, which is crazy because a lot of them are competition. And so here's Anthropic, which by the way was boxed out by the Pentagon, saying, guys, this, like there is some stuff that this thing can do in terms of hacking that we've never seen before. And every operating system that's out there and every browser, like web browser, like there's a bunch of hackable things and there's 0-day vulnerabilities. So like we got to fix them all together. And so now everybody apparently is working on fixing them. But yeah, it's crazy. What up, Lobato Cat, saying hello before this chat goes nuts. Maybe that was just yesterday. I hope it'll quiet down and it'll just be, you know, the real homies, the OGs. We got 5 people on Twitch. Again, Brian Fritch, how's it going? Hi. Since day 1 on Twitch. We got SML holding it down over on YouTube. We have TikTok, Mando. Hey, what's up, New Mexico? SML was talking to Lisa. We're just finalizing some stuff and just figuring out last minute things for the show. But yeah, the Anthropic stuff is pretty wild. We're going to be talking about that, I think, at the end of the show, or towards the end of the show. What else is coming up? How did I already forget everything? It's Iran. It is Anthropic. It is this ICE shooting that happened where the family was saying that it was a case of mistaken identity, and now they're saying maybe it wasn't. It's another moving car that was shot at by ICE, and ICE is saying that this was defensive, that the officers feared for their lives. The lawyer and the family are saying that the guy that ICE was trying to pull over was just trying to get away. So wild stuff there. And Artemis, yes, we're going to be talking about Artemis too. New pictures. Very excited about that. NYC, hello, Jenny, Empire, what was it? State? Empire State. Tina, we probably should look into that. We are going to cover the Harlem Globetrotters hanging out with the Pope. That's not quite the same thing, but of course, SML, yes. Let's see. And got it, breaking news, NASA, moon, space. Yes, love it every day. Would love to lead with that all the time, but can't get away with that every single day. James, happy birthday to you. 30 days on this planet, or 30 years on this planet. Wow, that is a lot of rotations. Happy, happy birthday. 30s are better than 20s. Promise you that. Sonny, what should we do our story about? What news can you tell us? Author Devin Shannon, hopefully, I don't know if it's aliens. I believe in the Fermi paradox and, the fact that we're probably not alone in this vast, vast universe. Whether UAP are aliens or something else, I don't know. But yeah, we're going to be covering that a lot, especially next week is going to be a big UAP week. We're hoping for this deadline. Congress is mandating, has said, yo, Pentagon, you guys have to release these files, and they're naming the files. And the video files have some weird, weird names. So we're going to see some of the 5 observables. I don't know. Lisa, 30s are better than 20s? Yeah, right? I'm hoping to peak in my 50s. Let's see. Sunny, we're going to send our news helicopter right over to get a close-up of that. Wow, that is some news right there. YouTube, if you don't know what her comment was, well, don't worry about it. Let's see. The actual files, that's what we're hoping for. Yep. My studio is at Universal Studios, which is great because you know how I feel about all things Universal. Satoshi Nakamoto gets $8 billion. Just one, Nathan. Hey, what do you think about that? I was like contemplating putting it in our show tonight, and we didn't. New York Times has some reporting there. We couldn't match the reporting. I looked into it. I don't know if that's the guy, to be honest. I mean, there are some really good theories that there is another big tech founder that also might be the guy. So I'm sure you're familiar with those too. But yeah, that seems inconclusive, but who knows? Maybe the New York Times is right. Let's see. Coming to LB for any Olympic Games? Probably, yes. I will be all over LA for the Olympic Games. Can't wait. Dave is digital. What's up, Dave? How's it going? Yes. What was the cylinder tube flying in the sky last night? Where? And did you get video? You better have gotten video, but there is it's not really a cylinder anymore, but Artemis is up there. Is there an audio lag? Seems delayed. Maybe. Is it delayed on TikTok? Let me check real fast. Can Anthropic AI hack Bitcoin? Clippy. I don't think so, no. The question, though, is can Google's quantum computers hack Bitcoin? Quantum computers are going to be, I mean, there's still a lot of stuff that they need to do, but quantum computing, the big threat there is what it's going to do for encryption everywhere, but in particular, cryptocurrencies. Hey, I need more stories like Al Pastor tacos being better than a granola bar. Yeah, we do. Tina, you're totally right. We do need more of those. I actually was trying, I was arguing with some people in the safety department here at NBC because I wanted to, Artemis is coming up on Friday and we wanted to do this thing. And I was like, hey, what's a policy on a blowtorch in the studio? Like, can we have just a controlled blowtorch if we have like the fire department here? And, then we could show the heat shielding and maybe we could put like a piece of cork and then maybe we could, put some spackling on it because when I went to space camp, that's what they did. They put an egg and then they used this blowtorch and then that's how we learned about heat shielding. And they were like, no. Well, sure, but you need a permit from the fire department within a day. You need a pyrotechnic expert here, and you need pretty much every lawyer on the West Coast to sign off on it. So you will not be seeing that experiment, unfortunately. Sorry to say. Hold on. Nature, I didn't see what you said. When will quantum computers be more commonplace? Probably when we have like room temperature superconducting, which is far away. Let's see. Mr. Coleman or Mrs. Coleman, moon landing, I'm so sorry. Look, I truly respect all conspiracy theories because it does show critical thinking, the structure of critical thinking, but moon landing, not fake. Definitely real. And if you put that critical thinking to work, the reflective tiles that were left up there during the Apollo missions, how much time do we have? 1 minute before our show time. And now I'm sidetracked with Apollo conspiracy theories. Just look at the parabolic arch of the dust that's coming off of the lunar rovers when they're doing the Grand Prix. That alone should be like, okay, yeah, in the 1970s, they couldn't have recreated that. Guys, I got to get in show mode here. But Coleman, to be continued. Windows on the moon, so why would the flag be waving? Great question. It has to do with 1/6 gravity. Remember, oh man, this is so, can we talk about that in a little bit? But yeah, if you've got 1/6 gravity and you've got a flag and the flag is on a telescopic thing, you put the flag down, it's gonna shake for a little while just because of the momentum. But eventually that flag will stop moving because there's no wind there. But yeah, it does look sketchy if that's all you see, but the totality of the situation, no. Look a little bit further and you'll see, like later on, that flag's not waving. Right now, if you get a telescope up there and you look at it, flag's not waving. Moon landing was real. But again, I like that type of thinking. Just apply it to everything else. Got it. Hey guys, it's Scotty Schwartz, and tonight, after roughly 24 hours, that fragile ceasefire between the United States and Iran is holding, but it's definitely being tested. Why? Well, because of fighting more than 1,000 miles away from Tehran, Israel continuing to attack Lebanon with missiles and bombs. Now, given that the attacks against Hezbollah became a proxy war in the Iran conflict, there is a he said, they said back and forth over whether that fighting was part of this deal. Plus, the search for straight answers about the Strait of Hormuz. Is that vital waterway really open for business? We're going to have the very latest from the White House and the region. Then a serial killer confession and the pleas ending years-long nightmares for at least 8 families. The latest on the Gilgo Beach murder.
After discussions with your lawyer, you feel it's in your best interest to plead guilty rather than go to trial?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you satisfied with the manner in which your attorneys represented you in this case?
Yes, I am.
But there was also an unexpected twist in court. What exactly went down there? Plus, why the hottest new system in AI might actually be causing a 5-alarm fire.
Well, your AI just failed epically.
That's unclear. It's possible that Son of Anton decided that the most efficient way to get rid of all the bugs was to get rid of all the software, which is technically and statistically correct.
If only reality was a TV show. We're going to tell you exactly why tech giants right now are joining forces to contain a system that's finding flaws in everything we use. Plus, what's old is new again. Why Gen Z is throwing it back when it comes to iPhones. Those are just some of the stories we are following. There's so much more to unpack tonight, so let's get going, because this is Stay Tuned Now. And tonight, just over 24 hours after President Trump announced a temporary ceasefire in Iran, a lot is up in the air, even as, or maybe because, right now both sides are claiming victory. But already we're seeing accusations flying that truce has been violated. And once again, it all comes down to the Strait of Hormuz.
The Iranians have agreed to open up the straits. The United States has agreed to stop attacking. And that, not just the United States, but also our allies, have agreed to stop attacking. And that is the basis of this fragile truce that we have.
But that's the thing. Today, Iran announced it was suspending traffic through the critical waterway again because overnight Israel launched attacks against Hezbollah in Lebanon. That is the largest wave of attacks there since the war started. Meanwhile, there are more questions and answers about what exactly is in both the temporary ceasefire and what a long-term end to the war would look like. There seems to be this huge difference between what Iran is asking for and what U.S. officials have been saying throughout the day. For example, Iran is asking for control of the Strait of Hormuz and keeping it closed right now.
We have seen an uptick of traffic in the Strait today, and I will reiterate the president's expectation and demand that the Strait of Hormuz is reopened immediately, quickly, and safely.
So is it open? Is it closed? And also, Iran wants the United States to accept their nuclear enrichment program.
Again, on the uranium, we're watching it. We know what they have, and they will give it up, and we'll get it, and we'll take it. If we have to, we can do it in any means necessary.
And then Iran is also expecting the full withdrawal of U.S. forces from the entire region.
Yeah, we'll be hanging around. We're not going anywhere. We're going to make sure Iran complies with this ceasefire, and then ultimately comes to the table and makes a deal. So we'll stay put.
And we're going to be getting a live report from the Middle East in just a minute. But first, let's go to NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez in Washington right now. Gabe, let's start with this temporary ceasefire. What are the conditions, and just how fragile is it right now?
Well, certainly, Gotti, there's a lot of questions about those conditions and confusion about what the U.S., Israel, and Iran have actually agreed to. Now, President Trump said that the condition of this ceasefire was the immediate reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Last night, it appeared that that might happen, but today we heard from Iran saying that it believed that Israel and the United States had violated the ceasefire and that it was closing up the Strait of Hormuz yet again. So I asked the White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt about that today. She said that would be unacceptable, but that in many cases, things that Iran said publicly were different than what they've been saying privately. So there's a lot of attention right now on who will ultimately control the Strait of Hormuz. And then certainly there's another condition that Iran says that it believes that the U.S. and Israel violated, and that those are those attacks on Hezbollah militants in Lebanon. Israel attacked them today. Hundreds killed, more than 1,000 people wounded, according to Lebanon's government. Iran says that it believed that any attacks on Hezbollah in Lebanon were supposed to be part of the ceasefire. But we heard from both the U.S. and Israel today that they don't see it that way. So again, at this point, there are lots of questions about how we move forward here. And there's also questions about whether Iran will agree to hand over its enriched uranium. The president seemed to suggest that that was part of this deal, or at least the basis for the ongoing, for the talks that are set to begin this weekend in Pakistan. But it's unclear whether Iran will end up agreeing to that. Today, the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, suggested that if Iran doesn't hand over that enriched uranium, that the U.S. military will go into Iran and take it if necessary. Got it.
Yeah, a lot to watch out for. And then, Gabe, just looking at, I mean, trying to process all of the 10-point plan here. When you're looking at all of these, it seems like most of them are non-starters. Full compensation for damage, acceptance of nuclear enrichment, withdrawal of U.S. forces from the region. How much of this is definitely never going to happen?
Well, look, Gotti, today the White House tried to make the case that a 10-point plan that had been floated earlier, that wasn't what the U.S. Had agreed to. And yes, you're right. It does seem like many of those would be non-starters. A compensation for any damages, I mean, that the U.S. would never agree to that. The removal of U.S. forces from the Middle East, hard to imagine the president ever agreeing to that. And really what it's going to come down to, Gotti, is, Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz. That is critical because before this war, Iran theoretically, maybe they could have controlled the Strait of Hormuz, but they didn't. And now they have been charging tolls against ships that have been crossing that vital shipping lane. And today, the president even floated the idea of a potential joint venture between the U.S. and Iran to continue charging those tolls. Although then, during the White House press briefing, Caroline Leavitt seems to suggest that that is something that the U.S. would not definitively accept, that it was just an idea floated by the president. So some contradictory messaging here. Unclear, though, both sides at this point, it is clear they're very far apart, and it's unclear how they will come to an agreement, in the next couple of weeks, Gotti.
NBC's Gabe Gutierrez at the White House. Gabe, thank you. And let's go now to Tel Aviv, where NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Gosk is standing by. Stephanie, good to see you. It seems like there was a lot of fighting today for a ceasefire, all this back and forth about whether Israel and Lebanon were included in this ceasefire. What's going on?
Yeah, well, let me first start with maybe some good news, and that is that we've been here in Tel Aviv all day long, and there have been no bomb sirens, no rockets launched towards Tel Aviv since the very early morning hours when the deal was just being announced. That has not been the case in Lebanon. And when the deal was announced, Pakistan's prime minister, who was critical in the brokering of this deal, came out and said that Lebanon was included. And there are over 1 million people in Lebanon that have been displaced over the last 5 weeks. Some of those people potentially confused by that message, maybe thinking it was time they could go back to their homes. And then you had Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu first thing this morning coming out and saying Lebanon is not part of this deal. And then you had Israeli Defense Forces warning people in Lebanon to not go to the south, and that there were going to be attacks coming from Israeli Defense Forces. And then they launched the most intense campaign they have since this war began. And you have more than 200 people killed, more than 1,000 people injured. The Israeli Defense Forces also saying that because of where Hezbollah headquarters itself, according to them, in highly residential areas, those were the kinds of places they had to hit. And you saw those images today of apartment buildings, not just in southern Lebanon, but also in Beirut, in the capital, very close to the city center. These apartment buildings completely leveled with rescue crews in this kind of life or death struggle to try to get to people injured under the rubble. So now you have this disagreement. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard says that Lebanon was supposed to be part of the deal. They are threatening to respond militarily. You also have the threats about the Strait of Hormuz. This is the kind of thing that, with a fragile ceasefire, could be the thing that breaks it all apart. Gotti?
Yeah, and speaking of this Strait of Hormuz, is it open right now or is it not? What's the latest there?
There aren't a whole lot of ships going through, and that is not entirely surprising. It has been very easy for Iran to shut the Strait of Hormuz. One drone in an oil tanker, and suddenly it is stopped. Insurance companies aren't going to insure the tankers as they go through if they perceive that there is too much danger. Clearly, with how unsteady things have been, there is that danger. Even though Iran agreed to open it up and allow for safe passage, that doesn't necessarily mean they fired up their engines and they're getting ready to resume normal back and forth transport between the strait. It could take a while for that to start to happen. Also, keep in mind, Gotti, that even if that does start to happen, there has been so much damage done to the energy infrastructure in the Gulf that it's going to take a lot more than just opening up that strait to get things back to normal.
Yeah. Meanwhile, in Iran, we saw demonstrations, burning American flags, Israeli flags. What is the mood tonight in Iran and elsewhere in the Middle East?
Right. You did see some government loyalists come out, hundreds, potentially thousands of them, celebrating the ceasefire deal, calling it a victory. Also, keep in mind, too, that the people who don't agree with the government don't feel safe coming out and demonstrating in any way. They feel that they could potentially lose their lives as a result of that. But you did see these loyalists burning Israeli flags, burning American flags, the Iranian TV touting this as a victory for the country, Gadi.
Yeah. And as we see those images, there are so many images that we are not seeing happening in Iran tonight. Stephanie Gosk, thank you so much. Now let's bring in retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Danny Davison, Senior Managing Director with Trends U.S., Bilal Saab, for a little bit more on this. So, Lieutenant Colonel, in a ceasefire, militarily, strategically, what happens inside of a country like Iran? Is this going to allow for digging in, and is the United States going to continue to fly uncontested over Iran with jets and drones?
Well, ideally, that there would be no more incursion of the airspace. I think that's one of the things that Iran specifically said. In fact, they cited Ghalibaf, the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, specifically complained in an ex-post this afternoon that there had been a drone coming, he alleges, from Israel, and it violated Iranian airspace, which he said was not part of the deal. So they're not supposed to be any flying over the territory there. And then that means also that the Iranian side is not supposed to be firing anything south into Israel or anywhere else in any of the GCC countries. So far, it looks like that it's partially holding, mostly holding. Certainly not to the degree that it was before this ceasefire, or whatever you want to call it, took effect. But definitely, all the sides will be taking advantage of the opportunity to not be hit with anything else and try to repair damage or so, and look to see what their leaders do about whether it's going to continue.
And Bilal, how do you think that this is being seen right now by Iran's allies and by those who support the government right now in Iran?
Well, let's start with the Iranians themselves. I mean, the government. I wouldn't be shocked if they're seeing this ceasefire as, frankly, a major win. I mean, obviously, they're seeing it first with extreme caution because they've been burned before, and they don't trust the president to honor it. Last time they were starting to negotiate, and all of a sudden they were attacked. So extreme caution, but at the same time, they feel quite emboldened that they got to this point. And I feel like, it's I describe this contest sort of as a game of chicken, and rightly or wrongly, I feel like the Iranians believe that we blinked first. And so if you look at their allies, I mean, let's just start with the top, a proxy that they have, which is in Lebanon, Hezbollah, right? They probably have mixed feelings. I mean, on the one hand, they feel that they're happy that their masters in Tehran are not getting shot at by the Americans. That's one. But on the other hand, now they have to deal with a much more aggressive Israel, which clearly has no interest in honoring this ceasefire. They're going all out, basically, against the organization in Lebanon. And that's the difficulty, and I agree with the colonel. That's the difficulty of a ceasefire like this. I mean, if it were bilateral, all you have to do is just basically monitor any violations from either side. In here, you got multiple sides, right, with different kinds of priorities and interests. And so you're going to have to see, a good bit of, honest to God conversations between us and the Israelis to make sure that we're sufficiently in alignment here.
Yeah, that brings up such a good point. And Lieutenant Colonel, I want to ask you, I mean, we saw Israel today say that they were going to honor the ceasefire with Iran, and yet big asterisk when it comes to Lebanon. And that seems to be a big, I don't know if it's a deal breaker, but definitely a source of contention for Iran. Do you see this in the Benjamin Netanyahu's interest, this ceasefire, or do you think that we could see attempts by his administration to try to continue to escalate here?
I don't think there's any question that they did not want this ceasefire at all. Many of the people that are kind of in Trump's inner circle, and even in the United States, that are also very close friends to Israel, like Jack Keane, flat out said he did not like this and did not agree with it, didn't think that it was a good idea. Benjamin Netanyahu went on television today in Hebrew and said that, listen, everybody needs to understand this, the war is not over. We are going to continue on until we obtain all of our objectives by whatever means. So he's certainly talking in language. It means that they're going to continue to fight. And if he's required to stop, to do anything with Iran specifically. He obviously exploited the opportunity to go double down and focus more now his opportunities and his assets into Lebanon, which of course is not in American interest. And it was obviously negotiated with the Pakistanis that was going to be included in the ceasefire. And it just shows you that Washington is very limited in its influence inside of Israel. They're going to do what they want to do, it looks like.
And Bilal, speaking of Pakistan, why is Pakistan the mediator here? We've seen some speculation that it may have to do with some back channeling with China, but Pakistan also has a war going on with Afghanistan, right?
Because of lack of alternatives. It's just as simple as that. I mean, they saw an opportunity. They're a large Muslim nation, and they filled the gap. And the gap is because none of the Gulf countries, which initially were better predisposed to that kind of diplomacy, they just can't do it because they're actually now on the receiving end of, Iranian missiles and drones. So, and they've been burned before, right? Like the Qataris and the Omanis and so on and so forth. So who's left? Okay, the Egyptians, they tried, that didn't work. The Turks, to some extent, that didn't work. Then you ended up with Pakistan. So it doesn't matter who it is, as long as somebody is actually playing a much more, productive, positive diplomatic role to at least get us to the ceasefire. But look, let's just be very clear, and it's really hard to overstate this. This is a ceasefire. I mean, it could be holding, it could be violated, but the core issue here is whether we're going to actually get to some kind of a deal between the two sides. And I saw your list, Gadi, on the screen of the things which we disagree with on the Iranians and what kind of leverage they still have, whether it's the Strait of Hormuz, whether it's the nuclear stuff. I mean, that's the core issue that we're talking about here. And you really feel like in the next 2 weeks, we're going to agree on all of these issues? I highly doubt it. And so my worry is, frankly, post-ceasefire, right? Or during this ceasefire, what are we going to agree on? And to me, the top priority has always been, which is why we went to this war in the first place, is the fate of the highly enriched uranium. If we don't get a resolution of that, either through violence or negotiated settlement, then what the hell did we do?
Yeah, I mean, it's such valid points all across the board. And again, I mean, this is a limited ceasefire. We are still very much involved in this war. Lieutenant Colonel Davis, Bilal Saab, thank you so much for joining us both.
Thank you, Gadi.
Thank you.
Now let's bring in NBC's Brian Chung for more on the market's reaction to the ceasefire news. So, Brian, how did things look today on Wall Street?
I mean, Gadi, it was pretty simple. It was a great day for Wall Street. We saw the Dow Jones have its best day since the spring of last year. It was green across the screen, up 2, almost 3% on some of these indexes. And I should point out that oil prices have also vastly recovered here. We saw prices on crude oil fall by about $20 in the course of a single day. That is the biggest drop that we've seen, down 16%, the biggest drop we've seen since 2020. So it seems like the optimism among investors is certainly driving those stock prices higher and oil prices lower. And that should also translate, Gadi, hopefully in the coming weeks, to cheaper prices at the pump as well.
Yeah, seems like a lot of money was made today. What are we hearing from shipping companies?
Yeah, well, this is the real interesting thing. So the optimism on Wall Street isn't really matching the actual activity we've seen in the Strait of Hormuz. We've seen some data from S&P that suggests a few boats have been making passage through the Strait of Hormuz since the announcement of this ceasefire, but we really haven't seen those levels anywhere close to those pre-war levels. And in fact, we've heard from some shipping companies like Maersk saying essentially that they're not really all that optimistic about all of this. Maersk saying in a statement essentially something along the lines of it might create transit opportunities, but at this point, we are not making any changes to specific services. And we also heard from Lloyd's. This is almost more importantly the types of companies that insure boats that make passage through the strait. And Lloyd's put it pretty plainly. They said that they don't see, or they say it's highly unlikely that trade in the Gulf will simply resume. So again, we're far from, out of the woods in terms of this story. Until more ships make passage through the Strait of Hormuz, there won't be real-world economic impacts as a result of this ceasefire.
And another very interesting chapter that will probably become its own book after all of this is this whole prediction market aspect to this. A lot of people have been watching this and then betting on the prediction markets, which has added this level of complexity, this level of scrutiny, the likes of which we have never seen before on something like war. What are those markets reflecting right now? And are they a reflection of public sentiment or insider trading?
Yeah, well, look, public sentiment would be the way that the Kalshis and the poly markets of the world would represent themselves. But I think there are also some real concerns over whether or not people who might be tipped off on these types of things, people in positions of power, will be able to use this to make a quick buck when it's really not fair to everybody else that doesn't have that same level of information. There was an interesting Associated Press report earlier today that suggested there were a bunch of new accounts that were made conspicuously timed right before the U.S. and Iran announced the ceasefire yesterday. There was actually one wallet the Associated Press highlighted that was created 12 minutes before the president posted on Truth Social acknowledging this type of a ceasefire. And that person made about $31,000 hammering the yes on some of these bets. So the person in question here, whether or not they could be prosecuted for insider trading, it's a wild west in terms of regulation on this space. And so you have some of these companies like Kalshi saying in the past they've investigated instances of insider trading, even booted people off their platforms. But is that enough? I think that's going to be the question going forward, Gadi.
Yeah, and so much of it happening in public view with access to a lot of those wallets and the amount of money that's made. It is a wild time. Ryan Chung, thank you so much. And don't go anywhere. Coming up next, family of a man shot by an ICE agent in California is speaking out, claiming ICE might have had some bad intel, what we're learning there. Plus, the wild video showing passengers on a plane flying without a door. More on what happened. Stay tuned. All right, 90 seconds, 90 seconds. Here we go. What's up, chat? We got 90 seconds to chat. Let's see. SML, where are you going? Yeah, I don't know what happened with Twitch. Twitch said that there was some sort of violation. Did you see that, Kevin? I wonder what happened. Violation of Twitch's community guidelines or terms of service. Maybe they think we're restreaming a different stream, but this is our stream. This is my show. We'll see. We'll see what happens. 1 minute. We'll figure it out. Let's see. That is an interesting take. I guess so. Doppio, is it straight open? That is a question we were trying to get a straight answer to, and it looks like, depending on some people, it is, and depending on other people, it's not. But the ceasefire is kind of holding, so everything is a maybe, everything is a question mark. And that's the reason why on our show, you're not going to see, sometimes you're not going to see definitive answers because there are no definitive answers. We live in a day and age where, perfect, one question will lead to another question, will lead to another question, and it's just a matter of being able to juggle all that. 10 seconds, here we go.
Bump it in sound. 5 to sound.
Police on Long Island say there may be a serial killer on the loose out there. 4 bodies have been found since Saturday.
Somebody targeted these individuals and dumped them in the same place.
Possible 5th set of human remains has been found.
I have very little doubt that whoever dumped those bodies in that same location, it's the same person responsible for all these women.
3 more bodies were discovered here earlier today. 4 have been identified as Craigslist prostitutes. It's a strong possibility, police say, that all 8 deaths are connected. And that remains found here were those of her missing daughter, Shannon.
I will not stop this fight until we find his killer.
Yeah, and the mystery of those bodies gripped parts of New York for 15 years. A long unknown suspect, they called him the Gilgo Beach serial killer. Well, today, a packed courtroom watched Rex Huerman plead guilty to 7 murders. Now, the 62-year-old architect accepted a plea agreement instead of going to trial. And in a twist today, Huerman admitted to killing an 8th woman. Take a listen to what his attorney had to say about the plea.
He certainly wanted to save the families of the victims the ordeal of going to trial, and coupled with saving his family that ordeal. So I know that there was conversations during the course of this defense between his family members and himself in regards to that, yes.
Emily Akeda was inside the courthouse and has much, much more on the reaction. Emily?
Well, after maintaining his innocence for nearly 3 years, the accused Gilgo Beach serial killer making a stunning reversal inside this courthouse earlier today. 62-year-old Rex Heuermann admitted to killing 8 women between the years of 2010 and all the way back to 1993. All of the women strangled and their remains placed in remote areas of Long Island in a case that captivated and haunted not only the state of New York, but really the country. Certainly some long-awaited answers and closures for those victims' families. Take a listen.
Through every year, every setback, every unanswered question, I carried you with me, and I kept that promise. And today, it has been done. Justice has finally found its way to you. Your voice was never silenced, your story never forgotten, and your life will always be more than the tragedy that took you.
Investigators really cracked the case several years ago when they launched a task force that re-examines the case, and they say evidence like witness descriptions, DNA pulled from tossed pizza crust, and cell phone tracking data led them to Rex Heuermann. They had also searched his Massapequa Park home, and they uncovered nearly 280 guns, reports, and magazines covering the Gilgo Beach investigation and mystery, and then also a chilling, disturbing, what they described as a planning document to, quote, blueprint his kills. Rex Heuermann is set to spend the rest of his life behind bars and has agreed to cooperate with the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit. His sentencing is scheduled for June, where his defense attorney, who says Heuermann is feeling relief around this day and the reversal of his plea, and the defense attorney says we do expect to hear more from Heuermann then. Gotti?
Emily Akeda, thank you. And the family of a man that was shot by an ICE agent in Northern California is speaking out about what happened. They say that Carlos Ivan Mendoza Hernandez was not affiliated with any gang, despite ICE's claims. Officials say the shooting happened during a targeted traffic stop yesterday. Agents were trying to arrest a gang member wanted for questioning in connection to a murder in El Salvador. But his fiancée is telling a different story, saying he's just a dad and a day laborer.
I have seen the cases from previous situations that happened in the whole country. I know they will find a way to make him be the person responsible, right? I feel like there's only ways for them to excuse what happened, right? Because I understand there's protocols, but I think one thing that we need to understand, we are dealing with people.
Now let's bring in Maggie Vespa, who's been following the shooting. So Maggie, what's the family and what's the lawyer saying right now?
Well, right now they're saying that a number of DHS's claims about Mendoza are patently false, completely false. They say, for instance, he's not now, nor has he ever been, a member of a gang. And then they also, earlier in the day, were so thrown by the allegations against him that DHS said led up to them pulling him over in that traffic stop and everything ensuing in the aftermath, the chaos of that shooting unfolding, that they believed initially today that this could have been a case of mistaken identity, saying his name is a common Spanish name, and perhaps DHS pulled over, ICE pulled over, and eventually tragically shot the wrong guy. It got a little murkier when it referred to when the family and the attorney checked on the claim that DHS and ICE made about Mendoza being wanted in connection, they said in their statement, with a murder in El Salvador, being wanted for questioning, I should point out. The family said that's not the case. The lawyer said that's not the case. And then right before today's press conference, it was a really dramatic day, Gotti, the lawyer clarified one detail about this. It got a little murkier. Here's what he had to say to reporters.
This morning, we received a little bit of information from El Salvador that he had a criminal encounter in El Salvador where he had been accused of murder and he was acquitted. And we have an order that I'll be giving to all of you guys that shows very clearly that he was, in fact, acquitted. So he cannot possibly have a warrant out for his arrest in Salvador. That is a complete misstatement.
So again, the family and the attorney just blasting ICE and DHS. And if we can pull the video back up, because that's what the heart of this story is, really saying that regardless of what happened at the traffic stop. They believe ICE was wrong to pull him over in the first place, and they believe when he took off first backwards, you see it there, then turned the wheel, taking off to the left. His fiancée, who you heard from earlier, said she believes he was terrified and that he had told her as these ICE raids were unfolding across the country that his biggest fear was being taken into custody because he's not a U.S. citizen, according to his attorney, and his biggest fear was leaving his 2-year-old daughter without her father. So she said, I believe he was afraid. He wasn't trying to hurt anyone. Cut to right now, Gotti, he is in critical condition at last check at a local hospital there.
Yeah, and Maggie, in that video, I mean, you see, once again, a reverse car going in reverse, then the car going forward, agents shooting at that moving car. Given everything that we've seen in the recent shootings like this, like, what is ICE's current standard operating procedure? Has it changed in the recent months, or is it still, you know, they see that and they see the car moving forward and they label it justified?
I mean, it hasn't changed as far as we know. Their standard training, Gotti, and we covered this when we were on the ground in Minneapolis, and your show covered this at length, is that they are not to shoot at moving cars. They are trained not to shoot at moving cars. And the idea behind that, and by the way, that's a common tactic in law enforcement and a common standard, is that shooting at a driver probably isn't going to stop the car by the time you need it to, if you need it to stop quickly, effectively. So when we look at that video, the question is, and this is where ICE has kind of split hairs a little bit with justifying these, was the driver, we can pull the video back up, trying to turn toward the officers? Was the driver putting their lives in immediate jeopardy? And a lot of people on social media, and you watch it here, again, there goes the car backwards, they're pointing out that the officers are moved out of the way by the time the gunshot happens, that he's shooting from the side. That was another common critique that we heard people really angry about the fatal shooting of Renee Good in Minneapolis, saying that an officer shot from the side. How could his life be in jeopardy? The car was going by him. But ICE and DHS have said at times, you know, in the field, things do happen quickly and they can be afraid for their lives, even if in retrospect, looking at video, they might not have been in danger in that very moment. So they're trained not to do that, but we've seen them do that. And this is another case, Gotti, as you know, where ICE is, again, under a microscope.
Yeah, and what is ICE saying about those moments where you see the officer open fire?
All they're saying today, all they're telling our team is that this is, according to a spokesperson, and they put this word in caps, not a case of mistaken identity. And they're really standing by their statement, which called Mendoza, again, a gang member who was wanted for questioning in connection with that murder. So they're not changing their story. They're not, backing down on any of the points that have been challenged by the family or by the attorney. And that's also similar to what we've seen in the past. They look at the video and they have said that they've only given the backstory as to why he was pulled over, and they've said that the officers fired, in their words, defensively. So we're not seeing them change their story in any way at this point.
Maggie Vespa, thank you so much. And coming up, stunning images keep coming in from the Artemis II crew as they continue their journey back home, how they are preparing for Friday's splashdown.
All right, 2 minutes.
2 minutes. 2 minutes. Okay, so we have that confirmed on the net, right? Lisa? Okay. We've got a verdict. Got it. 20-minute window? Okay. Got it. Okay. Hey, what's up, chat? We got some breaking news here. So you know that verdict, or you know the verdict that we were waiting for in the Hawaii case, the doctor who was accused of trying to kill his wife with a rock while they were hiking? Well, it looks like there is a verdict returned. I think they've only been deliberating for a day. It's a story that we've been following pretty closely. Well, apparently we're getting like a 20-minute warning. I don't know if that's going to time out for our show, but we're trying to get Liz Kreutz in position so that we could do a quick update as to what we know. Hopefully we'll get a verdict pretty soon, but look at this. We got, I mean, even before, it's gonna take us a while to edit all the video and get everything slotted in. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to make that happen, which we are scrambling to do right now. But you guys got the information before everybody else. Wait, Tina. I'm watching on the TV and the TikTok on your phone. That's awesome. Max, we use iNews. It's the best. Do you love it?
Sorry.
I know. We're almost to the science segment. We got two. We got AI, which is science, and then we've got Artemis coming up too. But we're going to figure out what's going on here and try to slot this in as well.
20.
And then we got headlines coming up. 20. Big Mike with the countdown. Anytime you hear that deep voice being like, 10 seconds, that's Mike. Oh no, what's this? We got to switch. That's out. Let's go VO if you can.
No, we need camera 2. The run is out.
Hey, welcome back. Here are some other headlines we are watching right now. The woman known as the ketamine queen was sentenced to 15 years in prison in connection to the overdose death of Matthew Perry. Jasveen Sangha pleaded guilty in September to 5 federal charges, including selling the ketamine that led to the 2023 death of Friends actor. In court today, she said she admitted to poor choices and horrible decisions that ultimately proved tragic. And there was a parking garage stairwell that collapsed in Philadelphia. Sources are telling our NBC 10 station that at least one person was rescued. It's unclear right now how many other people were hurt, if any, and that garage was under construction as part of the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia's plan to expand employee parking. And the driver of a school bus hit by a train in Florida last week now faces child neglect charges. Investigators say the driver went over the railroad crossing even after the warning lights were on and the crossing arms went down. In this video obtained by investigators, apparently you could hear the driver saying, "She ain't gonna stop for no train." The bus driver is now facing 29 felony charges and was released on bond. And the entire state of Hawaii is under a flood watch right now as it braces for another round of heavy rain. This all comes as the state continues to recover from those devastating flooding events last month. These storms are expected to last through Friday night. And there are new restrictions for charging devices on Southwest flights. Starting April 20th, there's going to be a limit to the number of portable chargers you can bring on flights. And you also won't be able to recharge power banks using those in-seat outlets. That's all to try to reduce the risk of lithium battery fires on jets. And we are learning in the last hour that the Coast Guard is now opening a criminal investigation into the missing American woman in the Bahamas. Lynette Hooker was reportedly swept out to sea after falling overboard during a dinghy trip with her husband Saturday night. This morning, the husband, Brian Hooker, took to Facebook, writing he is heartbroken over his wife's disappearance. But it all comes as Lynette's daughter said her mom was unlikely to just fall off a boat and described the couple's relationship as volatile. NBC's George Solis has more.
This extensive search has now entered its 4th day. Now, the Royal Bahamas Police Force saying they are still in search and rescue mode, saying they've actually utilized assets from the U.S. Coast Guard for aerial support. They've also had divers in the water, and that's as they continue to search by boat, even some areas of land here. Any sign of Lynette Hooker, and unfortunately, right now, those efforts have proved futile. Now, for the first time, we're also hearing from her husband, Brian Hooker, posting a statement on Facebook saying right now his sole focus is finding his wife and that he is heartbroken. This is the marina here where authorities say he paddled to after she went overboard. Now, there is no sign of his boat or him here today. Locals telling us that they do believe he is still somewhere in this area as he continues to look for any signs of his wife. Not many more updates from police today, saying this is still ongoing, and of course anyone with information is urged to contact them. And all of this comes as we've spoken with Lynette's daughter, Carly, who told us that she believed that her mother and stepfather had a volatile past, that there were some issues there. So she's raised some questions and concerns about the narrative that her stepfather has presented. But again, right now, authorities not saying anything to that effect, only that, again, they continue trying to search for Lynette Hooker. And as you see right now, these conditions, this is only making it harder for those rescuers right now. I mean, the wind has been picking up, the waves are choppy out there on the water, but all efforts are still being made to find Lynette Hooker here on day 4. Gotti?
George Solis, thank you so much. And turning now to this mid-air scare, a shocking moment on a Cape Air flight. The cabin door opening 10 minutes into the flight from Nantucket to Boston. NBC's Sam Brock has this one.
8 passengers on board a Cape Air flight to Boston suddenly staring at open sky after the main cabin door partially gave way mid-flight.
Probably 10 minutes in, we heard like a pop. It was half the window.
The way
like
the plane was
there's two halves. Like there's the bottom half and the top, and the top flipped open. The bottom half was still there.
Sheila Fee and Lisbeth Fuller say they noticed an issue with the door before takeoff.
It was like not like snapping into place, and then again, and then we were like, I think the chain might be in the way.
Then when the door flipped open, they say they heard the roar of the wind, Fuller capturing the view outside the window.
It was a little shocking for a minute, but then you realize, wait a minute, I'm not sucked out of the plane, so we're good.
The women credit the pilot with keeping passengers calm. Cape Air said in a statement the Cessna plane has been taken out of service, and the FAA says it's investigating. As for the sisters, they went right back up in the air, and this time the door stayed shut.
You guys went back and got on another Cape Air flight, like how much longer after this?
Like an hour and a
Just had
half.
to wait for the plane to get there.
And she was the same pilot?
Yes.
Which was good. It was like, we felt good about it.
Sam Brock, NBC News.
Yikes. Sam Brock, thank you. What a close call. Coming up in the future of everything, is AI getting too powerful? Who could have seen that coming? The existential scenario that might be coming true with Anthropic's latest warning. More on that ahead, so stay tuned. All right.
2 minutes.
Okay, here we go. Broadcasting live TV is a big no-no. They let you if it's your show. Yeah. Okay, that explains it. Irish, we'll start appealing and doing all that stuff. Hey, Irish Island, it's good to see you on TikTok, man. We're homies for life now. I saw a Jesse, the Oversight Committee on UAPs with Grush and the 2 pilots. Yeah, and like David Fravor, Commander Fravor from the Nimitz. Some of the UAP stuff gets very confusing. The Nimitz and what happened in 2004, I've been following that for years. I think I interviewed Fravor it was like years ago, before all this stuff blew up, and it was, us and the New York Times that were the only mainstreamers that were covering it. And finally, everybody else is taking it seriously, or a lot of other people are taking it seriously. Hopefully we'll get some answers next week. 1:20. Okay, we've got 1:20 to chat. Yes, Jesse, and we're trying to get Luna on next week. So if she's your representative, tell her to come on. Stay tuned now. Tracking the cameras. Interesting. And then what else here? Darn it, some of the chats. Couldn't raid in tonight. My show ended an hour before you. Ran out of material. Oh, I hear you. I hear you. But okay, so you're streaming like 2 hours before me. I'll try to jump in. Witness the Cerritos air disaster in '86. Oh my God, yeah. Yep, Tom DeLonge. 20 seconds back. Yeah, Tom DeLonge into the Stars Academy, and uh-oh, my shoe's untied. That stuff is so fascinating, but hopefully we'll get some straight answers very soon here. AI coming up.
4, 3 animation.
And tonight, in the future of everything, if you read comics, you know about the Age of Ultron, maybe. And it was a peacekeeping AI that became so powerful, it became the threat. And I'm not gonna lie, there's some news making waves today that seems a little like sci-fi, but it is not. The AI giant Anthropic, they just announced that they have this new model so powerful that they will not be releasing it to the public. They called it Mythos, and apparently it's already found thousands of massive security flaws, what they describe as zero-day vulnerabilities in cybersecurity. That is a big deal, and it's in every major operating system, every single browser. It's the stuff that you and I are using every single day. So this is all such a reckoning that all of a sudden this is happening. And I know what you're thinking, this is just a bunch of logos. These are some of the biggest tech companies on the planet. These are competitors, and they are being given access to Mythos for good, to use it to harden defenses. So what is going on? Why is everybody assembling in this kind of weird tech dream team? Well, joining us now is NBC's AI fellow, Jared Perlow. Jared, great to see you, and credit where credit's due. Anthropic, like, they did post what they have been red teaming here publicly. They're working with these other companies on their own volition. But what does this, first of all, tell us about Mythos's capabilities right now?
So what we know about Mythos comes from Anthropic itself. So I think everything that we know about it should be taken with a certain grain of salt, because they say they can't release Mythos, technically called Claude Mythos Preview, publicly because it is so powerful. Now, I also want to flag that potentially this is a case of AI company crying wolf, crying AI model that's too powerful to release. But from all the experts I've been talking to, it does seem like this is the real deal. So as you mentioned, this new model, Mythos Preview, has apparently discovered thousands of critical and high-risk cyber vulnerabilities, some which have never been discovered before. And one of them even goes back 27 years. This bug has been sitting in this really critical system for 27 years, and apparently Mythos has found it. So Anthropic has launched this new coalition, this consortium, as you mentioned, of leading tech companies to basically give them a head start to say, we think that we've discovered this crazy new power. We think you should be able to plug your defenses before we release this publicly, although we don't really know. Anthropic says they don't know if and when they'll ever release the full model publicly.
Yeah, what you're just describing, this teaming up and this planning for, we want to use this as defense instead of offense. It sounds like a bunch of companies, and yet missing on that list is Meta and XAI. And look, I know a lot of people may not have spent as much time on World of Warcraft as I did, but back in the day, there was this guy, Leroy Jenkins, right? And a lot of this reminds me a little bit of, everybody making a plan for defense, and then all of a sudden, you got somebody coming in and saying, Leroy Jenkins, and just running into a very difficult and dangerous situation. It did not turn out well for Leroy Jenkins or the entire raiding party. But is there a chance that we might see another big tech company come in and be like, you know what, we have a model this powerful and we are releasing it publicly?
I think that's a big question, and love the reference. More people need to reference it. OpenAI is probably working on a model very similar in capabilities, in power right now. I wouldn't be shocked if they release it in the coming weeks, the coming months. I think zooming out, the big takeaway here is that AI seems like it's entering a new era. The government is involved in this. All these leading tech companies are involved in this. I like to say, it's hard for me to see models becoming less intelligent, less capable from here on out. So I think that's certainly an option for all sorts of critical software systems in critical infrastructure like power grids, even airplanes, anything that really involves software.
Mm-hmm. One of the other things that's wild is when you're looking through the notes here and you're like, oh, wait, this was going on months ago. Everything that we see in the headlines that has to do with AI happened in the past. We don't know where things are right now. But a couple months ago, we also saw, while all this was going on, Anthropic fighting or disagreeing with the Pentagon over how its AI could be used for things like autonomous weapons or surveillance. The Pentagon then just boxed them out. And now we've got this. Does the Pentagon know about all this stuff? These companies that we just showed, they have contracts with the government. Where does Anthropic now fit in with the Pentagon, with defense, and what's going to happen to the industry as a whole?
Well, Gadi, I think you're asking the critical $100 trillion question right there, because basically Anthropic is saying we have this model that's too powerful to release publicly. One would hope that the government is in some way involved with this model or knows about it. So we've heard from Anthropic today. Somebody at Anthropic told me that they're working with certain government agencies in the cybersecurity and infrastructure business, also with the Center for AI Standards and Innovation, to basically share with them, to brief them on the capabilities of this model. But as you said, the government's actively trying to divorce itself from Anthropic. So you have this odd kind of tug of war, this odd tension. They're trying to divorce themselves, but this technology might be critical for American security or international, supremacy. So I think we're going to see where it goes. Today we saw a new ruling from a judge in D.C. that says the government can proceed potentially with divorcing itself from Anthropic. That was just a couple hours ago. So I'm really curious to see where this goes. I think it's going to play out over the next couple weeks, next couple months, but I think everybody should really buckle up and change your password.
You're curious. You're curious. I am stressed, and we will definitely be changing our password and checking back with you. Jared Perlow, thank you so very much. And we are getting some breaking news right now out of a Hawaii courtroom. That verdict has been reached in the trial of a Maui doctor accused of trying to kill his wife. Let's bring in Misty Maris if we have her here. This is a live video that you're seeing from the courtroom right now. But Misty Maris, if we have you, she's an NBC News legal analyst who's been watching this trial so closely. Misty, the verdict, if I understand it correctly, it went to the verdict yesterday. Is this a pretty quick turnaround here?
So, Gotti, it's about a little over 8 hours when I last looked at the verdict clock, and then we got word that the verdict was actually reached. So the jury spent a decent amount of time deliberating on this. And really, just while you were just doing your last segment, we got word that this verdict had actually come in. So it is something that I actually thought would come in relatively quickly, 8 hours. You're talking about very serious charges of attempted murder. So the jury definitely took the time on this one, but we didn't see this stretch out into days and days and days of deliberation.
Yeah, and we're waiting to hear what the jury has to say. But just to catch people up here, we heard testimony from the doctor, the person accused here. He took the stand. We also heard from the victim, or the alleged victim here. And we also heard from the doctor's own son, right, about a FaceTime call that he made, as well as all kinds of evidence that was introduced. What do you think the biggest moments of this trial are?
So hearing from the alleged victim and the defendant is a super rare combination. So that gives you a credibility contest when it comes to the jurors. And you really saw that in the closing arguments. But you hit it, Gotti. The son of Gerhard Koenig testified about 2 phone calls that Koenig made to him shortly after the incident with the victim, Ariel, his wife, took place. And Gerhard Koenig's side of the story is that there was an incident where she was the initial aggressor and he reacted in self-defense, whereas the prosecution side is that Gerhard Koenig actually intended to kill Ariel. So this call, which happened shortly after the he said, she said about what happened in that moment, was of critical importance. And the son testified that Gerhard Koenig called him, said he was suicidal, that he tried to kill Ariel, but she got away. Then a second call. Did you tell anybody? Oh, you told somebody. I want to get, the police are coming. I have to get away. So that was something that the prosecution said was tantamount to a confession. So they came in and said, hey, jury, you don't have to listen to anything we say. You can listen to the testimony of Gerhard Koenig's own son as to what he said in that call, and it's a confession. The defense, on the other hand, having to deal with it, Gotti, one of the worst facts for the defense in this case, said that it was out of context, that Gerhard Koenig felt badly that he had to act in self-defense, that he had hurt Ariel, and that he was suicidal, and calling his son to say goodbye. So that was a critical moment. Another huge piece of this trial. There was
Misty,
an 8-hour manhunt.
so sorry to interrupt you, Misty, but it sounds like we may have the verdict right now. The jury is in the room, and the judge, you see them talking to the jury right now, so let's listen in.
And did you sign and date the verdict form?
Yes.
Can you leave it in the manila folder? Ms. McKellen will come and collect it from you. Exactly. Dr. Koenig, can you stand as the clerk of the court reads the verdict of the jury?
Case number 1 CPC-25-00000373, State of Hawaii versus Gerhard Koenig. We, the jury in this case, finds the defendant guilty of attempted manslaughter based upon extreme mental or emotional disturbance, dated 4/8/26 by the foreperson.
Gentlemen, you can be seated. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm going to call you by chair number, not by name, but by chair number. And I'm going to ask that you answer out loud either yes or no. If you agree with the verdict that was read out loud here in court, you would answer yes. If you disagree with the verdict that was read out loud in court, you would answer no. starting with chair number 1.
Yes.
Chair 2.
Yes.
Chair 3.
Yes.
Chair number 4.
Yes.
Chair number 5.
Yes.
Chair number 6.
Yes.
Chair 7.
Yes.
Chair 8.
Yes.
Chair number 9.
Yes.
Chair 10.
Yes.
Chair number 11.
Yes.
Chair number 12. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Dr. Koenig, the verdict of the jury is indeed unanimous, and consistent with their verdict, the court judges you guilty of attempted manslaughter in this case. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I am going to send you back into the jury deliberation room one more time. There's a little bit more paperwork that you'll need to complete with Ms. McCallum. I will make myself available. I'll come into the jury room in about 5 minutes in case anybody has any questions. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. You don't have to wait though. If you want to get an early head start on your commute home, you're free to do so. When you leave in the hallways of the courthouse, the attorneys might be outside. They're always interested in hearing feedback from the jury. In addition, you know, there's media that has covered this case. There will be members of the media out in the hallway as well. Some of them may invite you to talk about.
And you hear the judge there reading exactly what's going to happen next to the doctor who has been found guilty in this very highly publicized trial. Misty, I'm sure you're watching along with us here, but we are seeing the reaction from the courtroom right now. Walk us through what penalties he's facing here.
So this could be up to a life sentence, Gotti. And what we heard during the trial was Gerhard Koenig's side of the story. And clearly the jury did not put much stock in that. And what I think was really interesting about the closing argument specifically is that both sides, prosecution and defense, said, jury, you've got to use common sense when you go into that jury room. Do these stories add up? Do they make sense? Do they align with the other evidence? So now we see that Gerhard Koenig has been convicted. The defense really attacking the idea that this was an attempt. So the prosecutors had to prove that he actually intended to commit the crime and trying to raise reasonable doubt on that front. Clearly, the jury siding with prosecutors when it comes down to the verdict.
And what do you think this hinged on?
I think his testimony, the testimony of his son, and Gotti, we didn't get to speak about it before, but part of this was the aftermath, which we did see. So the defense really wanted to focus on what was just a he said, she said. It's what happened before the altercation between Ariel and Dr. Koenig, because nobody else was there. But then we saw what happened after, and that's where the prosecution really focused. And one of the facts was an 8-hour manhunt, Gotti. And so the prosecutor said, if this was in fact a self-defense situation, if this was in fact something that Koenig was not trying to get away from, and he was acting in self-defense because of an argument that went off the rails, why run? Why hide for 8 hours? And a lot of his testimony, when he was on the stand, trying to explain away some of those actions was just not landing. So I really do think that this case really, the focus of the jury was likely his testimony and just matching up all of that evidence to see whether or not it was corroborated, finding that clearly the prosecution's case won the day.
Yeah, and once again, if you're just tuning in, Dr. Koenig out there in Hawaii has just been found guilty of attempted manslaughter. Misty Maris, thank you so very much for joining us. That's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Gotti Schwartz. We'll see you here tomorrow. But until then, stay tuned to NBC News Now. All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks so much. Thanks, 30 Rock. Chat, that is the show. Man, it's always difficult, no matter what the circumstances are, just to see a moment in the courtroom right now. Just, you know, families in there are wrecked. And a lot of times when you peer in, you forget that any type of situation like this has such a blast radius, right? It's not just, doesn't just affect one person or the people that you're talking about. It affects, you know, communities, it affects families, and it's just something that never gets easy to cover. Let's see. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Color bars, they're probably going to put color bars on in just a second, so this will be, we might just suddenly be cut off. So they didn't use your pre-recorded goodbye. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. It depends. Actually, did we have an Artemis one? No, we were going to go live through Artemis, but we ended up, we had to kill that story to make room for this breaking news. But Artemis is going to be all day tomorrow. Artemis is going to be all day Friday. So yeah, should be interesting. JG7, thanks for letting me comment. No, I try to comment to as many as I can that are nice, but it's tough because I'm getting a few different platforms here. So we're trying to consolidate them, but it's a little bit hard to follow everything. And then yeah, if you see me looking like this right now, I'm looking at the comments. This is what it looks like when I'm reading the comments. If looking like I'm over here, this is when I'm watching the show. And so we put everything all in one place, so you can see. So I can see what's going on in the show. A lot of times like I'll lean in like this, and that's because if I'm looking across the room, I can't really tell the details on graphics and stuff, and a lot of times I'm seeing them for the first time. But yeah, this means the chat is engaged and I'm reading what you guys are saying. Right now news, always miss the live, but I join and watch after. Oh, well, welcome. Now you got it here. Yeah, SML, see you tomorrow. Thank you so much. Am I still on WoW? No, I'm married and have kids. Do you think my wife would allow me to be a paladin just wandering around freaking, you know, doing what you do in Azeroth? No, I wish, but no. Love Artemis discussion. Me too. 5 p.m. Good night. All right, good night, everybody. Got to get home to the fam. See ya tomorrow. Leave.